Welcome to another episode of Touring the AFC South. I am your host, Mike Patton. This is the first show of the 2026 year. Thank you all for tuning into this episode. We're going to talk a little bit of coaching search with the Tennessee Titans, a little playoff football when it comes to the Jacksonville Jaguars and Houston Texans. And we're going to talk a little bit about a particular player within the AFC South that has a decision to make. All of that on this episode 372 of Touring the AFC South. But before we get into all those things, all AFC South, I do want to talk about a particular coach, his run ending after 18 years at one place. That coach, that would be John Harbaugh. John Harbaugh has been fired by the Baltimore Ravens. You can use fire, parting ways, whatever you want to use. He's not going to be there next year. Of course, after missing the playoffs, I will say, exciting if you are the Pittsburgh Steelers, by the way. But in a interesting fashion, if you're the Baltimore Ravens, with rookie kicker missing a kick wide right that would have won the game, instead losing 26-24. Now, I do have some things I'd love to talk about in this game, meaning basically, the end of that game when they're driving, they essentially, stopped, I guess, being aggressive, throwing the ball down the field, even though they had timeout. And they basically just moved the ball to the middle of the field, ran the ball to move it to the middle of the field for a 44-yard field goal. Now, I understand that kickers are doing great this year in terms of kicking long distances, but if I have Lamar Jackson, I think I'm going to at least take some shots down the field and try to score a touchdown instead of playing for a field goal to win the game. That's just me. That's my own personal belief there. But, instead, they lose 26-24, going home, and whoop, he gets fired. Now, the staff actually for the Baltimore Ravens wasn't made aware of him being fired before the decision happened. So I thought that was quite interesting as well. But either here nor there, he is not the coach of the Baltimore Ravens anymore. After 18 seasons of going, over those 18 seasons, I should say, 180 wins, 113 losses. He actually is 13-11 in the playoffs. He's the winningest coach in Baltimore Ravens history. And, of course, has won Super Bowl as well. So you can't forget that. But, it becomes a case of just looking at it. Someone's been there for a long time. It doesn't necessarily, there's highs and there's lows. And it's almost like you can be the hero and eventually the hero will become the villain. Now, this isn't, a hero-villain case, but this is also a case, I would say, of basically the good coach turning into the coach nobody wants. Unfortunately, that's the way things happen in all of sports. You have coaches that people love until eventually people do not love that coach anymore. And this is the case with John Harbaugh. I will say, one of the decisions down the stretch, you had Derrick Henry that was doing great running the football, and then all of a sudden you don't give him the ball in the fourth quarter. He doesn't get any carries, and he's actually rolling. And, those inexplicable decisions, it happens. It is what it is. And he owned those. However, you have to own up to those decisions as well. And the Baltimore Ravens decided to move a different direction. Now, I'm going to be interested to see who they bring in to replace John Harbaugh, because we saw the level of success. We saw the level of play, the different variations. And we did also remember, don't forget, Lamar Jackson did save his job when he was a rookie, coming in for Joe Flacco and just basically kind of changing the complexion of that Baltimore Ravens offense with his play and eventually elevating it even more with his play as well. So, Black Monday happens. Of course, this was on a Tuesday when that happened, but still the same effect happened. And Of course, he'll be very much sought after. I believe it's being reported that the New York Jets are actually looking at him, as well as there's a few other teams that probably have picked up the phone as well for his services, and maybe some teams that actually have a head coach in place still right now, which I find even more interesting. So, you never know. Either John Harbaugh could land on a sideline near you, or he could actually be in a TV booth near you. You never know what can happen. We'll see what happens when it comes to John Harbaugh. But yeah, out is the Baltimore Ravens uh, head coach, and simply a thing of, eventually, your time runs out in a particular place, and it is what it is. But hey, wish him well on his next journey. It's going to be interesting again to see where he lands next, or if he lands next on that sideline anywhere. But what we're going to do, we're going to take a quick commercial break. When we come back, we're going to talk about the playoffs and the two teams in the playoffs for the AFC South, or representing the AFC South, I should say, the Houston Texans and the Jacksonville Jaguars. We'll be right back after this commercial break.
EBO Beard Butter and EBO Beard Wash are two of the best beard grooming products for men worldwide. They help promote growth, keep your beard moisturized and soft, and enhance your overall upkeep of your facial hair. And with the new promo code MPAFC10, you can get 10% off all these products. Just go to www.etsy.com/shop/EBO Beard Butter. Again, that's www.etsy.com/shop/EBO Beard Butter. And again, the promo code MPAFC10. Again, MPAFC10, where you can get 10% off any products except for beard boxes. So treat your beard better today by going to get this EBO Beard Butter and EBO Beard Wash.
All right, and we are back on touring the AFC South. Like I mentioned before the commercial break, we are going to talk about the Houston Texans and the Jacksonville Jaguars. Up first, though, we're going to talk about the Texans, who will be taking on those same Steelers who beat the Baltimore Ravens. That's where the Texans are headed, to Pittsburgh, to take on these same Steelers, led by Aaron Rodgers offensively. Now, offensively, if you looked at this game for the Steelers, it was not pretty. Yikes. Man. Definitely was very uncomfortable watching it. I mean, trying to figure out how they were going to manufacture offense the entire game, which to me, that was they were trying. Now they did try to, get some running game going with Gainwell, as well as I'm forgetting his name. But anyway, they did try to get the running game going, but of course, it was kind of hit or miss. They did get some runs that actually were effective, and that helped them along the way. But not having DK Metcalf was huge in that game, because they didn't have anyone to take advantage of, or try to take advantage of, the Baltimore Ravens defensive backs. DK is a big guy and a fast guy, so that's a double whammy for defensive backs. And with them not being on the field, they really did not have a lot of weapons out there. To be honest, if you look at their receiving core, it's a lot of maybe third, maybe fourth wide receivers, third at best, I would say, wide receivers that are out there on the field playing 1, 2, and 3 roles, which that's not good for anybody, especially Aaron Rodgers, who is, not necessarily the same quarterback he once was. And of course, he's throwing to these guys, and nobody's really created separation or anything like that. Well, one separation happened, but that was on a slip by Chidobe Awuzie, who was a former Tennessee Titan, by the way. That was the last touchdown that Pittsburgh scored to win that game. But definitely, not a group of wide receivers, minus DK, that scare you. Now, with DK Metcalf, they might give you a little bit of a scare, but I mean, you've got all-world cornerback Derek Stingley Jr. on one side. You've got Lassiter on the other, who's a really good corner in his own right. So honestly, are they worried about the Steelers receivers? Probably not as much. I wouldn't be personally, but that's what they're going to be looking at in this game. The Pittsburgh Steelers are definitely going to have to scheme up some things. They did scheme up something one time though, and Aaron Rodgers missed it. I mean, you had Jonnu Smith running just completely by himself across the middle of the field, and I don't know what kind of pro hop step or whatever that did, whatever Aaron Rodgers did. Yeah, Lee, I was like, okay, well, he's got to hit him, right? He throws it completely over his head. That was like a 20+ yard gain on that play. He may even score a touchdown on that play, but he misses the pass. Aaron Rodgers misses that pass, sails right over his head. Other than that, I mean, they've got to create some ways to attack this Texans defense, and it's going to be difficult because this Texans defense is the stuff of nightmares for NFL offenses. I mean, you've got Daniil Hunter and Will Anderson Jr. on basically a defensive ends. You have Azeez Al-Shire, the middle linebacker, who is the heartbeat of this defense. And then you have, your corners, like I mentioned, Stingley, and you have Laster. And then also throw into that, you have one of the best nickelbacks in the NFL in Jalen Petrie. I mean, this defense is the Monstars. They are the Monstars for those that, know what I'm talking about, Space Jam. But this defense is the Monstars, and I'm trying to figure out if Pittsburgh is going to have any answers for them. But one thing they can do or try to do is run the football, because every now and again, the Texans do get ran on just a little bit. But that can happen maybe more later in the game than early in the game, just because, being tired, because at that point there, the Houston Texans offense wasn't getting on the field, staying on the field long. But we're going to talk about them in a minute. But that's one thing they can do. They can also kind of change the speeds of the offense. I mean, you watched Aaron Rodgers over the years, he can definitely come into the line of scrimmage, call a play, and run it really, really quickly. That one doesn't get a sub to come into the game, or doesn't allow subs in the game, or them to kind of change up their defensive personnel. And also it catches them off guard, so they kind of have to make a quick decision what they're going to be in, what they're going to do, and things like that. And oftentimes that leads to a mistake happening, and that means the team could take basically the Steelers could be able to take advantage of it. So we'll see what happens there. There's a few things I could think of to maybe give them a chance to actually put up some points against this vaunted Texans defense. Also, looking at the Texans offense versus the Pittsburgh defense. Now, we all know the Texans offense hasn't necessarily been great all year, but one piece of this offense that has been pretty talented is Woody Marks. I mean, Woody Marks, definitely has added to this offense, along with, of course, Nico Collins. You can't forget him. But he has been a linchpin in this offense, whether it's catching the ball in the backfield or running the football. He's actually ran the football better than I thought he would run the football this season. But, hey, he's doing his thing. And, it'll be interesting to see how they use him and employ him in this game to actually go at the Steelers, because I think he can definitely make some things happen versus the Steelers linebackers coming out of the backfield. I'm not sure in terms of the rushing the ball, but Houston has been okay at times, and other times you make you want to either kind of cover your eyes with maybe what they can put out there in terms of running the football. But I mean, we'll see what happens is all I can say when it comes to that. You definitely got to, threaten the Texans downfield. You definitely got to do that, because if you don't threaten the Texans threaten the Steelers, you got to threaten the Steelers downfield, I should say. Because if you noticed in the game versus the Ravens, they got not once, but twice. I mean, you look more than that. They got a few times. You had Tez Walker, you had Zay Flowers get them twice. I mean, 3 times they got them really, really good. And all of that was because they attacked them downfield and, took shots. This is what the Houston Texans must do. They must be aggressive versus the Pittsburgh Steelers, because their defense is good enough to give them more possessions. It is. The Texans defense is good enough to give them more possessions. So why not be aggressive, attack the Steelers defense? They are a little older in the secondary, especially with Jalen Ramsey playing safety. Lower 30s, but still in the NFL, that's a little older. So it's going to be interesting to see if he tries to like jump a few things or whatever, because it looked like he was put in a couple compromising positions because he thought they were going to run this and they ran something else and he was left kind of standing. So, if the Texans have paid attention to any of that Baltimore Ravens film, then yes, definitely take your shots. But, another thing that goes along with taking your shots, if you're in unpredictable down the distances, like you're 3rd and 3 or 3rd and 2 or something of that nature, or 2nd and 5, the defense is kind of at your mercy just a little bit because they don't know exactly what you're going to do. It's not a traditional down and distance that they can predict what you're going to do in terms of tendencies, unless you just outright show them those tendencies throughout the year. So if you're in, unpredictable down the distances, it keeps the defense a little on their heels and allows for the Houston Texans to be able to kind of exploit them potentially with Nico Collins, with a Jalen Higgins. Hey, they've got some players over there to make some things happen. Of course, got to throw out Dalton Schultz as well. That's another guy tight end for the Houston Texans. He can make some things happen too. So those are key things to take a look at. Keep an eye on in this ball game to see if the Houston Texans are able to win offensively and defensively. They are facing the lower of the division winners and a team that didn't necessarily look great in beating the Baltimore Ravens, but it is the playoffs. It is a Mike Tomlin coach team, and they're going to stay there. You're going to have to put them away. They are not going to fall away. So essentially, you've got to do your thing, do what you're supposed to do, go out there and win the game and not play to lose the game. All right, we're going to take another quick commercial break. When we come back, we're going to talk a little Jags and Bills and kind of get into that one. And then some other news, of course, with the Titans head coaching search and a particular player from the Indianapolis Colts with a decision to make. We'll be right back after this commercial break. A shift. A shift is something that happens and changes the dynamics. And that's what happened when Garrett Logistics was born. After 10 years as a sales pro in the logistics world of sporting goods, John Garrett decided to pivot to the world of freight and start a brokerage. So you're saying to yourself, why trust Garrett Logistics? Well, Garrett Logistics helps shippers improve overall workflow, along with increased on-time pickup and delivery percentages. Last-minute loads, multi-drop pickups, and more are part of the services with Garrett Logistics. They're available Monday through Friday, 7 a.m. to 6 p.m., and Saturday, 8 a.m. to 12 p.m., all times Central Standard Time. So give them a ring at 615-400-8484. That's 615-400-8484, or you can email them at john@garrettlogistics.co or visit their website at garrettlogistics.co. Garrett Logistics, where the motto is, it's not just freight to us, it's your business. All right, and we are back on touring the AFC South. And like I mentioned before the commercial break, we're going to talk a little bit of Jags and Bills. Of course, the Jags and the Bills will be facing each other this weekend. Of course, plenty of talked about Josh Allen and, of course, him being in the playoffs without his usual people that are in there with him, his usual fellow quarterbacks. That would be Lamar Jackson, Joe Burrow, and Patrick Mahomes. So plenty are thinking, oh, he may win and he may do this. But, of course, you got to also remember the Jacksonville Jaguars are playing some of the best football they have played in a while. Offensively, they're cooking with Trevor Lawrence, definitely in his zone. You've got Jacoby Myers doing this thing, Parker Washington doing this thing, a wide receiver. And then you got the defense, 22 interceptions this season, forced a lot of turnovers, and they are stuffing the run. Which that brings me to something I want to talk about as well, the Jacksonville defense versus the Buffalo Bills offense, which a lot of people will be watching this comparison because Josh Allen is on the Buffalo Bills offense, of course. And he is a lot of this offense, he and James Cook. And speaking of James Cook, he's going to be running the football and going to attempt to run the football against this Jacksonville Jaguars defense. But this Jacksonville Jaguars defense does not give up anything on the ground. 100-yard rushers, they haven't heard of them. So, it's going to be interesting just to see if Buffalo can get anything going on the ground. If they can't, that means this game goes more on Josh Allen's shoulders. And that means he's going to be seeing Trayvon Walker, Josh Hines Allen. Used to be Josh Allen. I know Josh Allen versus Josh Allen. Who's the real Josh Allen? But no, that isn't there anymore because we have Josh Hines Allen versus Josh Allen in terms of him rushing the passer. And then you have, of course, the Jacksonville secondary. That's, definitely not necessarily as bad or they've not necessarily talked about as much as it probably should be. And then you have, of course, the linebacker core, Devin Lloyd, who's had a superstar season this year for the Jacksonville Jaguars. That'll be interesting just to see Josh Allen, how he's able to, if he's able to matriculate the ball down the field and how he's able to matriculate the ball down the field, because, you have star quarterbacks and they have, it's a lot of them have good weapons. With this team, you have Kincaid, you have Dawson Knox, you have Josh Palmer, you have Kenyon Coleman. Let's see, who else do they have? But any of these guys, can you name, are they a number one wide receiver? That's a no. Some of them may not be number twos. So there you go. So basically, it's going to be up to Josh Allen, his arm, his legs, to basically lead them, especially if the running game does not get going. So yeah, that could be problems for the Buffalo Bills. Definitely if they have to throw it the entire game. Now let's flip over to the Jacksonville offense versus the Buffalo defense. Now the Buffalo defense hasn't necessarily been great this year. They have had some issues, but if I'm Jacksonville, I'm running right at them. Yes, I'm running right at them. At the beginning of the year, I don't know if people haven't remembered way back when, but the Jacksonville Jaguars were a top 5 rushing offense in the first few weeks of the season. A lot of people forget that. So they could kind of channel those things. That would be great for them against the Buffalo Bills, along with, of course, value the football. Don't turn over the football. That's huge for anything in any team in the playoffs. You got to get the ball to Jacoby Myers and Parker Washington. Get those guys involved. I know before the season, you probably would never say that, you probably would be mad at me. People would be mad at me or going scorched earth saying, why are you not saying Brian Thomas Jr.? Because here's the reality. He's not necessarily a huge part of this offense like Parker Washington and Jacoby Myers are. That's just it. These when it comes to the pass offense, he is not a huge option for them. He's an option, but he's not like, if he doesn't play well, we're not going to win this game type of option. No, it's not the case anymore in Jacksonville. So it's going to be interesting just to watch there. And then Trevor being Trevor. I tell you this is probably some of the best football we've probably seen Trevor Lawrence play in his NFL career. He is making the tough throws, making the easy throws, taking off to run the football. If it's not there, he's sliding sometimes. I would say this is, this could be a game where you see Trevor Lawrence, maybe have that type of playoff game that makes people think about, like, maybe this guy is taking it to the next level. We'll see what happens, but it's going to be an interesting game between the Jaguars and the Buffalo Bills, who, by the way, the Jacksonville Jaguars are hosting this game. People often forget that. This team is good enough to make a run to the Super Bowl, just like the Houston Texans are. Jacksonville Jaguars, but I would say Jacksonville Jaguars are probably a little more just complete in terms of both sides of the ball, not necessarily saying that the Jacksonville Jaguars defense is as good as the Houston Texans defense, because I don't believe that. But, more complete team, I would say Jacksonville, because they can beat you a variety of ways. Not sure the Houston Texans offense is doing that this year. But, all right, we're going to move on to my next subject. Of course, that is the Titans head coaching search. Now, There's been a flood of names mentioned. There's been a Matt Nagy, the Chiefs offensive coordinator. There's been a Steve Spagnuolo, the Chiefs defensive coordinator. Now, I know Mike Berganzi knows these guys very, very well because he came from the Chiefs to the Tennessee Titans. He did say he's going to find the right man for the job, even though he is very familiar with these two. Doesn't necessarily mean he's going to employ one of these two. All right. You got Vance Joseph, the defensive coordinator of the Broncos. You got Raheem Morris, former Atlanta coach, which that one really surprised me. Lou Anarumo, DC of the Colts, defensive coordinator. You got Jason Garrett. That name popped up. And then, of course, you got a Kevin Stefanski, who's been mentioned as well, who recently was fired from the Cleveland Browns. A lot of names mentioned there. I will say it sounds like they're leaving no stone unturned in terms of NFL coaches, and I would not be surprised if more NFL coaches don't land on their list of people they're reaching out to. More and more, you just gather that Mike Berganzi, who is running this search, by the way, he's leading this search for new head coach. Mike Berganzi is trying to get the best fit in here. It doesn't matter if it's offense, defense, whatever it is. He's trying to get what he feels is the best fit in here for Cam Ward, for Jeffrey Simmons, for the Tennessee Titans organization. And it'll just be interesting to watch how this search plays out and who ends up being the new head coach of the Tennessee Titans. I mean, would it surprise me if they call John Harbaugh? No, wouldn't surprise me there either. I mean, anything is on the table if they want to talk, or if that coach is willing to talk to the Tennessee Titans as well. And we're going to kind of finish the show on something different here with Mr. Mooney Ward. Now, for those that aren't aware, he was the cornerback for the San Francisco 49ers up until last offseason when he signed a really, really nice deal with the Indianapolis Colts. He was going to be their number one corner. Of course, during the season, he had some concussion issues. The one concussion that a lot of people saw where he was getting ready before the game and ran into one of his teammates and basically was out for 4 games because of that concussion. He was on IR, on short-term IR. Well, he talked in terms of, to the media and talked about, the end of the season and things like that. And he got really candid with media, talking about concussions and talking about he's talking about retirement potentially because the concussions and the lingering concussions. I mean, he's had like 3 this year, and he's been on IR twice with concussions. Now, his dad, for what it's worth, said he wants him to retire. And I mean, ultimately, it's the decision of Mooney Ward what he wants to do. But just taking a look at him and taking a look at the concussions and how those can have short-term and long-term effects on you, hey, I hope he makes the best decision, the most informed decision possible. Can I tell him to retire and he needs to retire? No, I can't tell him that because it's his career, his body, and what he wants to do with it. But would I retire in this situation? I probably would. But, that ultimately that is his decision. And I just wish him the best in whatever decision that he makes for his health, his life, and whatever that may entail for him. All right. Well, we have reached the end of the show. Of course, if you don't know by now, my name is Mike Patton. I am the host, producer of Touring the AFC South. You can find me on the artist formerly known as Twitter at Mike Patton 82. That's MikePatton 82 on the artist formerly known as Twitter. You can also find me at that same one on Blue Sky. You can also find me on Instagram and Threads at that's THA, not THE _general_MP. Find me also on, you can also find, of course, Touring the AFC South on all listening platforms, whether it be Spotify, Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, you name it, we are there. You can also find Touring the AFC South on the Mike Patton Network on YouTube, where you can subscribe, whether you want to listen. You can subscribe there at Apple Podcasts, Spotify, all those places, or you can go to YouTube, click the bell as well when you subscribe, so that way you do not miss any episodes as soon as they drop videos. You won't miss those either. Just want to thank you all for tuning into this episode of Touring the AFC South. stay tuned. There'll be more writing. There'll be more talking. There'll be more videos. We're out. Peace.